Welcome to the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast.
My name is Jen Clark.
And I'm Elka Clark. We are a mother-daughter team who started our Zazzle e-commerce businesses over 10 years ago and have sold $15 million and counting of products on Zazzle with our designs on them.
We had so many people asking us how we did this, so we created our signature course, the Profit by Design Academy, which teaches our 5 strategies for success on Zazzle.
When we aren't helping creative entrepreneurs just like you create profitable e-commerce businesses, we love cooking food from places all over the world that we've traveled to, jet setting to our next dream destination, spending quality time with our close friends and family, or having fun creating our next bestsellers in our Zazzle businesses.
In this podcast, we share actionable steps you, the creative, can take to make money in your e-commerce business on Zazzle. Each episode will take you one step closer to achieving freedom with your time, location, and finances.
We believe that you can have anything you dream of, as long as you work smarter, not harder. And we're here to give you the tools you need to make your dreams happen. Let's get started. Well, hey there, it's Elka.
And Jen, and in this episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast, we are talking about the mistakes to avoid when naming your Zazzle store.
And it's going to be a great one because if you don't do this correctly at the beginning, then unfortunately, if you build up your store and you've got a lot of products in there, and then something happens, like either you realize it's the wrong name, or actually even worse, it gets like there's someone complains because it's actually a copyrighted name, then you're going to get all of that work taken away from you because they're going to shut your store down, which is unfortunate, and we don't want that to happen to you. So when you first start on Zazzle, or even if you're starting a new store on Zazzle, then you've already been on Zazzle for a while, you just think, okay, I'm going to start a new store. We're going to go over some pointers and tips that you should consider every time you create another store on Zazzle. So let's get started with some of those.
Sure. So first of all, we want you to think about what is the purpose of your store. What are you going to sell, and what is your niche or niche? And we will be talking about this in a later episode or a different episode of the podcast. But in general terms, what will your store's purpose be, and what will you going to sell? Are you going to be a designer as yourself, like for example, Jennifer Clark Designs, or are you going to make up a store name that has nothing to do with my name, but it's something interesting that would be for the purpose of your brand? Let's say like Fuzzy Paw Creations, because I want to create some really fun dog related items. And so you have to think about what you're going to be selling and what kind of vision and direction you want your store to go in first. And this is obviously very important when naming your store, because you want to name your store something very similar to the vision of your store. You're not going to name your store something completely different. First of all, because your customer won't understand the connection between the name and what you're selling. And then also later on, if you do decide to change your name, your URL for that store will always be the same. And this is what Elka was talking about, was that afterwards, if something happens, you either are, you have all of those products and all that hard work that's gone into the store, and now you can't actually use that URL, or you want to change your store name and then your URL where you're actually directing your customers to doesn't fit with the store name that you want to use now. So the first thing, what is your vision, or what are you going to be selling in your store? And play around with what kind of things are going to resonate with your customer, and how you can portray the types of designs in your store name.
Yeah, and you want to make it something relatable so that they can actually understand right from your store name what it is that they're going to get when they get to your store. As Jen said, something to do with dog products then makes total sense with the Fuzzy Paws. And so then the next part, though, is a matter of checking to see if someone else has already used that, especially not just on the Zazzle Marketplace, but is it copyrighted by someone else on the internet or someone else as a physical store? So the place because Zazzle, for example, does sell for the majority of customers, they are focused in on the US market, then you can at least start there, because every country actually has trademarks. And so the most important thing is to make sure that within the US based market, just at least to start, that's where you're going to check to see if your design or name that you've just come up with for your store isn't already something that someone else has trademarked. A nice way to do that is, an easy way is to go to the US trademark site. And it's a little bit more difficult to just get there by a URL, so we can't tell you that. But what you can do is you can Google US trademark, and then something will come up. You click on that, or you can even say TES, TES, as well as US trademark right in the search bar. And then that will bring up the US government trademark site. And then on that site, you can go and click on a couple of buttons to get to something called the TES search. It's basically, I don't know what the name of it is, but it's TESS. And that's very easy once you put in that to find that and get the click and the link to this search engine that allows you to search every single trademarked item that has been registered onto the US government site. And then what you can do next is choose the word search, so that you don't have to worry about images as well. And then you can do a quick search. It's super easy. Actually, it just feels uncomfortable and weird because it's such a weird site, but also it's not very user friendly. But when you get there and you just go, okay, I want a word search, put in my word, and then you're going to get a ton of results. The results will be very interesting because you're going to see if anything that has been registered as a trademark that has the word or a piece of your phrase of your store name in it. And so then you can just go through the entire list, and you can see on the left-hand side all the names. Then you can see more information in the middle, and then on the right-hand side, it'll give you some really cool information, like is it active, is it not active, what specifically is it trademarked for? And then you can click on each of those entries and see a little bit more information about what the trademark's all about. And then it's up to you to decide whether you need a lawyer to move on in addition to this, or it's kind of clear that there isn't a thing being used with the words that you want to use for your store name. And if you feel that you're not sure, then double check with a lawyer. It's going to be so much better than realizing a year later that someone has come and told you to, or Zazzle has been told that they now need to take your store down because you're using a copyrighted name.
Yeah.
And we don't want that for you. So do that quick check. It's super easy. Go to just basically search US government trademarks and TES, TES, and then it'll come up with that site, and you will be able to do a quick word search and see what's happening. And like I said, if you're not sure, this is the place where you can spend a bit of money to double check that your store name is going to actually be legitimately fine to use as you build it, because we have vision for you to make the store name your brand and your store that you have for 10 to 15 years, and you want to consistently have that make money for you. So that's the first thing. Now, if you do find that there's a copyright infringement issue, then you have to change the name. And again, you might need to speak to a lawyer to double check to see if you're far enough away from the trademark in order for you not to get a cease and desist letter, which is not something it's very scary. If you get something like that, you feel like you've just really broken the law, but you have. And so we want to make sure you don't feel that, have that experience. And really the main thing is you don't also want that competition, right? Why would you want to have the same store name or brand name as someone or a company that's already out there that you would then not ever, be able to have the customer be able to distinguish between your brand and this other person's brand or this other company's brand. Okay, so that's the big, the serious note of this. How about some of the funnier and sillier parts of it?
I thought it was
78.
I thought that it was really interesting that you said we have a vision for you, because we do have a vision of you having this Zazzle store for years to come, because we personally have been working on Zazzle for 13 years and counting. And if you asked me back back then, if I thought that I would be with the same Zazzle store from now 13 years in the future, I would have like looked at myself 13 years in the future and I said, no way. I didn't realize that what I was building back then is what has become to be today. And so we want you to, first of all, have a store name that sticks with you, feels good with you, feels good with your vision, and feels good with everything that you want to do going forward in the future, and is also obviously legal. You don't want to, a couple years from now, be dinged, like you said, and be told that you need to be taken down. But in terms of like funny things that have happened, we've done all of these mistakes that we're talking to you about, except copyright, because we did our research. But we thought at the beginning that we could just open up a Zazzle store for fun and then make some products, and that our store name actually wasn't going to be shown by anyone or seen by anyone. And so I opened up my first Zazzle store, and I thought that it was kind of like an email, like or your username, right? Because back then you would create your Hotmail accounts or your the Windows Messenger account. And so I used one of the account names that I had created for myself on one of these other websites. And so it was Jen Clark 78. And I started to make products there. I started to actually sell things there. I started to become a little bit more professional. And then I realized that I couldn't change my store name. And I was like, I don't want to be known as Jen Clark 78. Even like 78. Why 78? And so that was my mistake. The store still exists today and the products are horrendous, but that was sort of my stepping stone to figuring out where I wanted to go in the future. For you, you might have actually created a store just like Jen Clark 78, and there's no shame. Everybody might have done it, but the most important thing is that you realize that it's not actually professional, unfortunately, where you have a username sort of name to your Zazzle store, unless that's part of your brand and what you want to get across. Because if there's a number or something that makes it look like your username and that's actually your vision, then go for it. But if you're just starting out on Zazzle and you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, I would stick to not making a username store name, because if it starts to pick up and become popular and you have some really great selling products there, then you can't actually change the URL. You're always able to change the store name that shows up in your homepage, which we talked about in the branding episode of the podcast, but the URL will always be the same. So sometimes there may be a huge disconnect. If, for example, I needed to change my store name from Jen Clark 78 to Fluffy Pop Prints, when they go to my URL, it's still going to be Jen Clark 78. And so my customers are not going to understand the connection between this and that, only if I make it very clear that I'm Jen Clark 78.
Yeah, and so there are some workarounds, but it's tedious, and why not just start with the proper store name to start with?
Yeah.
And also some things to remember is try not to have even Zazzle tells you don't put in certain like dashes, commas, and punctuation and number signs and ampersands, because that will mess around with the URL, because that's basically what you are doing. You're creating a URL for your store.
Yeah.
And so you want to have something that's easy for the customer to be able to type in, as well as for it to be something that's not going to be misunderstood by the customer and they can't find your store.
Yeah. Talking about that, try and avoid using double letters together, right? So if you wanted to have, let's say, Jen Neutral Designs, there's two N's there, and sometimes people will mistake and actually not add the second N, or they'll add more N's than necessary. Or if you have a first and a last name that start and end with, or end and start with the same letter, things like that. And make sure that the words that you use are easily spelt by people, because I know that it seems quite silly, but if the majority of the population doesn't know how to spell the word necessary or the word turquoise, and if you're using harder words in your store name, sometimes you're going to lose out on potential customers just because they don't know how to spell it properly, which is not, anything against your brand. It's just making it easy for the customer to find you.
Yeah, and also things like knowing that you choose the American spelling rather than a British spelling or Canadian spelling.
Yeah.
With the O, instead of like favor is O-U-R in Canada, but in the States it's O-R. So things like that are always something you need to be mindful of when using figuring out your store name.
Yeah.
And that way, as Jen said, the main thing is always to see what could the customer mess up and how could they be more frustrated if you do this as a choice rather than do something like choose the other choice, which is much more simple.
I had one more thing, unless you wanted to go now.
Go for it.
When we first started out on Zazzle, we thought that we had to create multiple different stores for different types of products. So we had a business store, we had a stationery store, we had, actually breaking it down even further, we had a birthday store, we had a bachelorette store, we had it
just keeps going.
It just keeps. I think I even had a candle store at one point. So you have to think about this is going back to your vision of your store. If you're so adamant right now that you're only going to make birthday cards and that's it, I'm probably going to blow your mind and say you probably want to explore and change up your designs a little bit and actually use some of the other templates that Zazzle offers, because they offer over 1,000 different products for you to customize and post for sale in your store. And when you create a store name that says like birthday card designs, then when you actually branch out and want to design something other than birthday cards, it also looks a little bit funny to your customer and there might be a disconnect there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that brings up another topic is we actually recommend only 1 or 2 stores. We've done the multiple store route and it doesn't work because there's so many things that you need to do and be professional about on all of these stores separately. And unfortunately, there used to be a time where that was a logical route to go. But now with all the things that Zazzle asks you to do to make your storefront look nice, and also anything to do with outward social media marketing, now makes much more sense if you have 1 or if you want 2 stores, and then use that store more effectively by having the different categories that you use for store categories be those sub stores that you would have normally made as individual stores.
Yeah.
And that solves that problem that Jennifer was talking about how you may all of a sudden decide that you want to do more than just birthday cards, and that would be more amenable just to add another category rather than to create an entirely new store. I even had like a store that literally said iPod something.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, iPods aren't even like really
That's true. I don't think people
anymore.
have iPods anymore.
Yeah, and we thought at the time it was like, okay, this is the big deal. This is the newest thing. iPods, everyone's going to want one. But we don't want to have it messed up with all these other products we're selling. Let's just make an iPod store.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's things dead in the water now.
Yeah.
And so what we really want you to focus on is keeping your options open. Create a store that's going to have the ability to be flexible with a store name that's going to be more generalized, so that you can make sure that you are able to tap into all these other niches if you want to expand.
Yeah.
But if you do things like Jen's example with the paw prints or the fluffy paws, then that's okay, because that means you're very much focused on dogs or maybe even anything else that has paws and fur. And so you've got quite a big range. And so that is truly still a really great choice for a name and a store, because you're not limiting yourself. Whereas, the birthday card examples.
Or the candlestick store.
Much more specific and less opportunity for you to expand.
Yeah.
So that's the end of our store. Is there anything else?
I think that's about it, but I think you need to pick a store name that really resonates with you and that you're going to stick with for a long time, if that's what you want to do. We do tell our students that they can open up a store to go through the Profit by Design Academy just to get the right motions to set up their store properly, and they can either stick with it or they create a new store afterwards. You're always able to create new stores, but as we mentioned before, we do recommend you stick with 1 or 2, because after that it gets very overwhelming and you're not able to actually pay attention and put the right branding or be consistent with your branding to show your customer that this is a true true store and this is who you are as a designer and what you sell on Zazzle rings through with all of your branding, whether that be just on Zazzle or within external stuff like social media. Because ultimately you're growing a business, you're growing something that is professional and people buy from you. It's not just a thing on the internet or on the computer screen. People receive products from you and they want them to be looking and feeling professional from the touch point, which is on your store homepage. And from your store name as well.
And then the confidence of knowing that they bought it from this store, because that is truly what they're going to associate your product with, because every single product, when it's showcased, right next to it is your store logo and the store name. And so all of that ties together and allows your customer to feel like they're buying it from a true store, just like Barnes & Noble or something else. And so think about it at that level, because you deserve to think that it's possible for you to sell at that level. Jen and I have sold over $15 million worth of product. That's like a department store's yearly and sales revenue. So don't underestimate the significance of what your store name does and what you offer in that store. But starting with the store name, you have to have something that really can be indicative of what the customer knows they're going to get when they come to your store. And then every product is going to have that next to your store name will be next to the product on the Zazzle Marketplace. And that, along with your logo for the store name, is going to be part of the package that allows your product to feel like the customer going to feel like they should buy this product, because they see the store name, the product itself that's high quality, and together as a package, they're going to feel comfortable that this is a good brand to buy from. All right, so that's it for us. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to The Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur with Jen and Elka Clark.
We hope this episode has given you actionable steps to start and scale your Zazzle business so that you can have the passive online income to have location and time freedom to live your dream life.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Each review helps us reach more creative entrepreneurs like you working to create a profitable e-commerce business.
And don't forget to take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories and tag us at Miss Jen Clark and at Elka Clark. We'd love to hear your biggest takeaways from today's episode. See you back here next week.